Evening, everybody. Whoa. And welcome to Pop Go the Writers. That was a weak pop for all that setup, you know?
What? Why did we get the Halloween opening?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay. No, you should always go with, the feeling.
It's,
That's
well,
what
you
you
know,
do.
as Al Jorgensen of Ministry once said, every day is Halloween.
I can get behind that. Yes.
Yeah, and we are 6 months away from Halloween. Well, 6 months and a week or two, but
That's very true. That's very true. In fact, I think I actually saw a spirit store opening the other day here in town.
yep. Yeah. So how's everybody doing tonight? We are going to have an interesting conversation, which Jim has no idea what we're going to talk about, but it's become fun.
Zero.
That I wait until the last minute to see what kind of topic pops up, and then we jump in and talk about it. And
Well, you fooled me with the Superman symbol.
no, I haven't, because we're not talking about the movie.
That Superman is that from the movie?
That is from the movie, yes.
As Grandpa Simpson said, I ain't for it, I'm again it.
Well, no. Tonight we're going to talk about something completely different, which I think will be up your alley.
Okay.
And it all started because of an old friend of mine.
Okay.
I used to work at Bleeding Cool.
Yeah.
And I apologize now for that. No, just kidding.
Yeah, you got a lot of reparations for that.
Yeah, I wrote 14,000 stories for Bleeding Cool.
Jeez.
In 5 years.
Oh, so you're that guy. Okay.
No, I was the other guy. Basically, there was Rich Johnson, there was me cranking out stories, and then Jude Terror came in and was cranking stories out too. So we've had a few people in there, but yeah, I was on a level with Rich, like Rich, me, and then all the other, because I was cranking out
the guy that founded Bleeding Cool.
Wait, what?
Who founded Bleeding Cool?
Well, that's kind of a tricky thing because everybody assumes it's Rich Johnston.
Oh, no, it's not though.
No, because Rich was working for Comic Book Resources, doing line in the gutters over there, and they let him go. And William Christensen, the owner of Avatar Press, and he has a mail order company. I don't remember the name of that off the top of my head, but he started it. He basically called up Rich and said, "Hey, I'm gonna, I'll give you this format. I'll give you your own site." Yeah. So he and Mark Seifert runs it from the standpoint of the technical side of it, and Caitlin Booth is the managing editor, but it's pretty much Rich is the driving force. Rich has all the connections. He comes up with all the stories or all the insider stuff. And I got to tell you, people have an interesting opinion on Rich that, he's just, there's some negative opinions on Rich. But I do want to, since we're talking about it, I want to tell the story about the first month I worked there. The first month I worked there, I was there a few weeks, and then San Diego Con happened. I started like the very beginning of July, so we had San Diego come up. Rich got a scoop, some information that would be headlining information at that time. This would have been 2014, the summer of 2013. Mm-hmm. And the news he got, and he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, do you know anything about this? Can you, And what it was that John Romita Jr. was going to leave Marvel and go work on Superman over at DC. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any contacts that could have pulled that, together and stuff. By the way, hello Ed, hello Triple B. I'm still new to the game, but Rich, of course, reached out to Marvel to get a comment and to DC. DC said no comment, and Marvel asked him not to run the story. They weren't ready to make that announcement yet. That, somebody who had been known for so long as part of Marvel was going to up and leave.
At the time, I remember there might have been a few people trying to compare it to Kirby leaving Marvel, but I mean.
Well, Marvel asked him not to run it, and they offered him up some other scoop as kind of an exchange. And it wasn't as good as the scoop, but Rich understood and made the deal. And he sat on it for, I think it was like 7 months until it was actually announced.
Wow.
Because it wasn't until like January or February of the following year.
Wow.
So a lot of people, like I say, give Rich, bad.
Yeah.
But my working with him, I had no problem working with him. He and I got along great. There was never anything bad between us. And to this day, I think Rich is a good guy. So I know a lot of people have bad thoughts on him. I don't think it's fair because I don't think you see behind the scenes. You don't see what he does to verify a story before he runs it. He tries. And most of the time, most of the publishers just assume that any press is good press and they let it go. And then they whine about it. Oh, I can't believe he ruined the story. They wanted it ruined.
Yeah, sure.
Or they would have done something.
I don't hear his name as anywhere near as often as I used to,
Hey, Dustin. No, it's a lot. It's more. There are more scoop sites now and stuff.
Yeah, that's probably that's probably what it is.
Yeah. And with the internet and stuff, more people are on kind of spoiling their own stuff too.
Yeah.
So
he probably didn't know JR at that point, that he could go directly to him and ask him.
He might have. I mean, Rich knows a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, all right. So Rich wrote a story this morning that I thought was fascinating, having to do with Mark Millar, and I'll give you the highlights of it.
Okay.
Mark Millar is hinting that, he's been talking about wanting to do some more Superman work. He's been talking about it for a while. DC is supposed to have reached out to him, and they were talking back and forth. But he's got this deal with Netflix now, and I guess I don't know if this is the deal he's got with Netflix, but basically what he wanted DC to do was to change the way they do things. There's a percentage you get if it gets to a certain point of sales. And he wanted it to be that, according to this article, that if they get to 60,000 units sold, then they split the rest, after that 50-50.
Okay.
Which is a huge number. I mean, 60,000 books.
What is it now though? What's the
I think it's they get 2%.
Same number, 60,000?
I don't know if that is. Rich doesn't get too clear into it, but that's
that's sorry. And I'm inwardly I'm groaning and laughing because it's like 60,000 is just, man, that's nothing compared to the old days. Wow, just nothing. Jeez.
So he's been talking about wanting to do these Superman stories for a while.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of pulling back and saying instead of dealing with DC, he'll just wait till Superman hits public domain.
I knew you were going to say that. But wait, well, when is that?
2033. 9 years.
Okay.
And I know that sounds like a long time, but the story I told you about JR going to DC,
that
was 11 years ago.
Yeah,
Time moves quickly.
Yeah, okay, but the character will still be trademarked.
Let's see, Dustin says, "Oh man, but you have to be really careful with that because it's not like Mickey. It could be really easy to step over that line." That
Yeah.
is 50% correct. So what I did was I looked it up and I wanted to see, okay, what does that mean? And the simple things is that the Golden Age Superman,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't be able to use the name Superman because you're right, that's trademarked.
Yes.
And all he could do power wise, basically Superman at that point was strong enough to pick up a car.
Uh-huh.
He could leap an eighth of a mile. He couldn't fly.
Uh-huh.
He could outrun an express train and was mostly bulletproof.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So much of the other stuff came later and wouldn't be in the public domain until the equivalent time.
That's right. And still trademarked for that man. He might as well just go ahead and do it now and not call it Superman,
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if he could go to the Siegel estate, because DC has to put every single appearance by Superman has to say, through the good graces of the whatever it says, the Siegel, a state. So I don't know. Maybe there's an agreement that the Siegel estate can't make any other deal with anybody since they have this deal with DC.
I like Ed's asking mostly bulletproof. That's got me curious. Me too. Dustin says, right, but that's so very gray. You could lie all day about it. Most normal folks are not going to do the scientific sleuthing to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's I don't know. He might as well just work the idea into something of his own and not screw around with that.
You mean like what? Nemesis, his version of Batman?
Yeah. Alan Moore did Supreme, Kurt Busiek has Samaritan. I mean, there's how many analogs to Superman out there?
Just look at Marvel.
Yeah.
Gladiator.
Hyperion. I'm trying to think of the other one, the Squadron Supreme member. Hyperion. Sorry, you said that. Yeah, that's just dumb to say I'm going to wait 9 years. If it's that good of a pardon me, I told you. Sorry, folks. My snot is clear, at least. I'm on the backside of the cold. If it's that good of an idea, it shouldn't matter that it's called Superman or not.
Ed says, bless you, but Jay says, behold, up in the stratosphere, it's a winged animal. It's a helicopter. No, it's Kryptoman. They can't say crypto.
Right.
Krypton, crypto, all that stuff came in the later half of the Golden Age.
Yeah.
Just
you can pick another kind of element, a gaseous element.
He didn't fly until the Fleischer cartoons in the 40s.
Yeah.
So you've got at least 2 years before you can make him fly.
Yeah. I'm getting the sense that this is just that he just wanted some publicity. He wanted a company to come to him and say, don't wait, we'll just come up with our own thing. And
you'd have to use the original logo on the chest. You couldn't use the newer ones. You'd have to.
But even if you did have all of that, you still couldn't say Superman. I guess
you could call
get around that by just having
him Superman, but you can't make the book Superman.
That's right. Right.
It's like Captain Marvel for DC.
Yeah.
They can call him Captain Marvel in the comics.
Yeah.
But the book itself has to be named something else.
Yeah, and damn well that DC's lawyers would still be on his ass, that they would try at least.
They would be checking every I and T to make sure everything is done right.
I don't remember. Is Mark Millar that big of a rebel, troublemaker. Okay, all right.
He thinks he is. He's a rebel without a clue.
Okay.
I've never met the guy personally, but I've always wondered about.
I was just testing the temperature of the room here, and to see what if I could, what I could say and what I couldn't say. So I you know what, I mean, obviously I know who he is and everything, but it's like he's not a guy that, to me he's no Grant Morrison, or Alan Moore for that matter. Although I'm not happy with Alan Moore these days, but yeah, you know what? It is silly. Again, if it's that good of an idea, rework it, because it's the story that will carry the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody will know anyways that it used to be a Superman idea, and they can imagine it's Superman if they really want to. But yeah. Alan Moore said, hey, I'm going to do all these Superman stories, but I'm just going to call it Supreme,
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
But look at Zack Snyder, the Rebel Moon thing with the sequel coming out. That's his Star Wars story.
Yep. Did the first one ever come out?
But now I want to talk to the writer brain in you.
Okay.
How cool would it be?
If
say you wait until the end of 2034 and you write a little team up story about a guy who can leap tall buildings and all that stuff, teamed up with a man who hides in the shadows and fights crime, and you could do your own little Batman Superman story, but you could do it, as kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing.
Sure.
Like you could do a total film noir version.
Here's an interesting thing about it. Like this whole thing with Mickey Mouse, I don't know if anything's actually happened since we can use Steamboat Willie. Everybody was so excited about it. What really has happened since that time? Is everybody just? Well, I mean, I guess everybody's quiet because they're all working on their graphic novels.
I believe Tim Seeley was ahead of the game and already worked Steamboat Willie into is it called Money Shot? Jay, is that Money Shot book he does that uses a bunch of public domain characters and stuff, and it's kind of basically a porno book?
To Dan, to what end? I mean, kind of, so what?
Tim, I think he's just having fun.
Okay, I mean, all right, that's one thing, and I get that. Other than that, I mean, or is it like I want to stick it to Disney any way I can? I mean, is it that thing? Because I know people like that.
It might be, or it might just be the shock of having Steamboat Willie show up in a basically adult comic book.
I guess, yeah. You know what? We used to call those Tijuana Bibles.
Well, it's kind of like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, right.
Winnie the Pooh went to public domain, and they went out and made horror movies about him.
Yep. What those people are making what now? And I heard this. They were making something else into a horror movie.
I think they're doing Steamboat Willie.
I swear it was something else. It was, and I was surprised that that was supposedly public domain, and I can't think of what it is. So what they can do though with Winnie the Pooh is that they can't use anything that's specifically Disney, right?
Right. Basically, you can go from, okay, let me give you a completely different example.
Okay.
If I wanted to do my own Boston Blackie comic, I could go from Jack Boyle's original 1910 book, where the character comes from, and I could write that like crazy. But I couldn't pull from the radio programs.
Exactly right.
They're not in the public domain yet, so I couldn't pick. What's the sidekick's name? I couldn't use his shorty, or whatever the sidekick's name was. I could use the girl, his girlfriend, but that's it.
Yeah.
And that, I couldn't do a lot of the little mannerisms and stuff that Chester Morris put in, because those were all done in the radio program.
Yep.
It's like if you did Superman in 1938, or Superman in 2033, you can't use kryptonite, you can't use Krypton, you can't use Perry White, you can't use Jimmy Olsen.
Perry White is actually in Action Comics #1. Or no, it's not. Pardon me. It's George Taylor.
Yep.
For
Perry
the Daily Star. You're right. You're right.
Introduced in the radio programs, just
and
like
there is a redheaded kid in the office, but he's not named for a little while. Right. That's right.
Yeah, but he's actually first named in the radio program.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's like with Batman. There's a few things that end up in the movie serials, like the Batcave, if I remember correctly, is first shown in the serials, and then it was adopted, for the. This is a subject that's of great interest to me, but it also kind of makes me mad because I just don't get it. I get that people want to write their Superman and Batman story, and I do too, but I also respect copyrights and trademarks.
Right.
And to me, I see this as an impetus to create something of my own, rather than just wanting to do something that other people have done, for decades and decades. Like, it really should be spurring us on to create our own things instead of sitting there watching the clock tick down until, we can finally do Steamboat Willie. Oh my goodness, Steamboat Willie, Yeah.
Well, because there's some stories that resonate with people. It's like last year,
yeah,
I know of a movie that went into the public domain. That I immediately contacted a publisher I was dealing with, and I said, we should, because it's a movie that doesn't exist anymore. It should be obvious. I don't want to say it, but
is it a horror movie?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to assume I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. And I thought it would be neat to take the original script, which still exists, and turn that into a graphic novel.
When did it become public domain?
Just late last year.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Now, mind you, that
idea.
That same movie was redone by the same director, writer, with a different cast. But there's something about that title because it doesn't have that same title.
Yeah.
And that title is kind of mythical,
It sure is. Yep. And that particular character design is very legendary too,
Yep. Yeah.
So, you know what? I mean, I would support you on that because it's not something. I mean, that property is just that thing. It didn't continue on for decades and decades and grow into this big, huge, global phenomena like Superman. And you don't have anybody who will be, you're not going to get C and D letters,
What if I wanted to do Sherlock Holmes stories?
I'm afraid that I'm not fully up on that, but from what I understand, you can, because I know somebody who's a publisher, and they've been doing Sherlock Holmes original anthologies for years.
The whole Conan Doyle library is in the public domain. So you can go all the way up to Reichenbach Falls and after.
I guess as long as something is not trademarked, you're not going to have. I mean, there's plenty of Holmes pastiches out there, and there has been for a while, probably even when there shouldn't have been. Yeah, that's a weird one. There was this big argument a few years back about James Bond, that in some place, like in Canada, it's public domain, or the early books are, or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, because different countries have different public domain laws.
Yeah, yep.
It's like I believe Peter Pan is in public domain here, but not in England, because J.M. Barrie actually gave the rights to
the
a
orphanage.
children's hospital.
Yeah, children's hospital, right.
So anybody who does anything with Peter Pan has to pay the children's hospital.
Yep.
So you can do it here, but you can't over there.
Yep. Speaking as somebody who's gotten in trouble more than once, although I wasn't trying to do anything illegal, it's not a great feeling, and it's been weird situations because, like I said, I'm a guy that totally respects copyrights and trademarks, but I've watched more and more and more creators trying to get around that as the years progress, just trying to Conan. I know a fairly big time writer who suddenly published a Conan novel, but it's not authorized by the Robert E. Howard estate, and there's supposedly some weird loophole, and I just personally I wouldn't have done it. I don't know, it's just too much trouble.
It's the Thunderball loophole.
Yeah, I guess.
How did they do Never Say Never Again? Yep. Because the writer of Thunderball was able to get the rights back and sell it a second time.
Yep.
And they brought Connery back for that.
Yep.
Otherwise, everything else has been that and the original Casino Royale. Everything else has been the Broccoli family or Broccoli family or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I hope it's Broccoli because I would hate to think that their last name really is Broccoli.
As far as I know, it's Broccoli. Although a lot of people say broccoli, and I'm sure you look at it and that's what you think, but I think it's Broccoli. So this Mark Millar thing, when that came out or whatever, or his intentions or whatever, and he said the thing about waiting and all of that. Did you see reactions to that? What kind of reactions did he get?
I haven't seen a lot, and this was this morning.
Okay.
But even Richard says, but he says 2 things worth noting. Everyone will be allowed to do super comics, games, TV shows, and movies then. So Millar won't just be competing with DC, but Marvel, Valiant, Todd McFarlane, Robert Kirkman, Viz Media, Webtoon, everyone doing Superman suddenly. No. What is the betting that Scholastic will have a Dogman versus Superman comic from Dev Pilkey?
Yeah, I don't believe that's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
and there's a good chance that this is just a negotiation tactic.
Yeah, I feel that's probably
that's not really the gist of what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. We had to get through it.
Okay, well, I was having a good time, but okay. I wasn't getting as angry as I usually get about this topic.
I just want to move into this other part of the conversation because I think they're both valid parts of the conversation.
Okay.
But Superman is the tip of the iceberg.
Mm.
And this is going to affect DC big time first.
Mm.
Because Marvel, they have a couple characters that were created then. Submariner, the original Human Torch, Captain America, and the first version of the Vision,
a character called the Angel appeared in Marvel Comics #1.
The Angel, Red Skull. So there's a handful of characters they're going to have to deal with. But then the rest of Marvel wasn't really around until the 60s.
Right. Yep.
Where you look at DC, they were cranking these characters out. And they're, stuff like, we got Superman, then Batman shortly after, then Wonder Woman, and then, just down the line, Aquaman,
Shazam,
all these,
There's a good one because I don't know how the hell it came to be that the word Shazam, it can be used by anybody at any time, anywhere. I can't imagine how anybody let go of that or didn't
Yeah.
renew something or whatever. I mean, there's companies called Shazam or what. Anybody can say Shazam. It's
You used to
just
say it all the time on Gomer Pyle.
sure. At one point there was some kind of company, and I can't remember what the deal was, called Shazam, and that was when I went, wait a minute, how can they get away with that? And somebody said, oh yeah, that they don't, like, DC or doesn't own that. Do you know what the deal is with Batman and Bob Kane? That, like, DC totally completely owns Batman, right?
Yes.
They must have paid Kane off at some point completely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first thing, Shazam is a phone app that hears music and tells you what it is.
That's it. It's an app. Yep. Yeah.
The deal with Bob Kane is similar to the original deal with Siegel and Schuster, is they bought the character.
Yeah.
The difference was Bob Kane put it in writing that he got credit for all the work on it for a certain period of time, even if he didn't do the work.
Right.
Hence why Bill Finger and for a long time Jerry Robinson and stuff like that were uncredited on those books.
Right. But they don't have all that wording for Batman every time he appears that they do for Superman.
Well, the thing is that because Siegel and Schuster's families went back trying to get the rights back.
Right. But Kane's estate never did that, I'm assuming.
Right. And also, I believe Siegel and Schuster were underage.
They were teenagers when they created him, but it took them a few years to actually sell it. So I'm not sure exactly how old they were when they actually sold it.
But basically, they fought and got certain changes made where Bob Kane's family didn't.
Yeah. Right, because it was probably very cut and dry, at that point. And Kane was already, older or whatever. I think that credit is still there, created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, but I don't know if they're legally obligated to always put that credit in there.
I think they are.
Okay. Do you know, what about Wonder Woman? Is it still the Marston estate have anything to do with it, or is it totally that?
Yeah, actually, Marston was brilliant. He put in something in the contract that is a huge gotcha.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I was never sure if that was an urban legend or not.
No, supposedly it really is in the contract that if they do not publish a Wonder Woman comic, an actual standalone Wonder Woman title within a certain, I think it's within a year, then the rights revert back to the Marston estate. So it's the same thing they do with movies.
Yeah, right.
It's why Fox put out. They rushed out that really bad Fantastic Four movie. Well, okay, there's been a few of those, but the one with the kid from Top Gun.
You're talking about the Roger Corman version.
No, the Roger Corman was the same deal. Hanging on to the rights, but Fox put out the most recent one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They rushed, even though they really should have scrapped it and started over, it would have gone over the amount of time and they would have lost the rights to it. It's how Daredevil and Ghost Rider and all these other ones reverted back to Marvel as well.
Right. Speaking of Wonder Woman, when it switched over to George Perez taking over Wonder Woman after Crisis, there was a mini series right in there between the end of the ongoing series and the beginning of his called The Legend of Wonder Woman. And interestingly enough, we just lost Trina Robbins, and Trina Robbins illustrated that. Yep.
Trina Robbins, the first woman to ever draw Wonder Woman.
Isn't that amazing? Jeez.
It is.
In the 80s.
Yeah. It still blows my mind. The other thing that I find interesting about Wonder Woman is the guy who drew the original stories wasn't a comic book artist.
Oh,
He was,
H.G. Peter. Yeah.
yeah, H.G. Peters. He was a fashion designer or fashion artist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, that's,
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if you could get away with that nowadays.
It's a real shame because I think he has yet to ever see any kind of screen credit on anything with Wonder Woman. And it's probably because of the deal with the Marston, estate. But he at the very least should get a Bill Finger type of thing, with HGP, created by, William Moulton Marston with H.G. Peter, because H.G. Peter designed the outfit, and my God, he drew that book for years, from the very beginning. And it's a real shame.
And don't forget, the idea came from Roy Thomas.
He was their editor, right?
Yeah, he was the editor on that. He
wanted it was my hero. It was my hero, Shelley Mayer, who was the editor. And you know what? I've heard that he did not like the character, and he did not like Marston. He did not like working with that guy at all.
Well, Marston at the time was pretty much the most of the time they referred to him as being kind of the Dr. Spock of his era.
Or something. Yeah.
Not Mr. Spock, but a lot of people forget that in the 70s there was a pediatrician who became famous named Dr. Spock.
Yep.
And everybody kind of confuses that with Mr. Spock.
Yep.
But, so basically Marston was the Dr. Phil of that era. He was kind of a pop cultured psychologist. He co-created the lie detector.
Yeah, and he was what we call a free thinker.
Yes,
he had some very interesting ideas about marriage and relationships.
Yeah, he was in an open marriage. He had a wife and a girlfriend, had
and
kids with both of them, and they all lived together. Yeah, there's a movie called Dr. Marston and the Women. Dr. Marston and the Women that goes into it, and it's a very interesting lifestyle. But Ed did a little research for us. He says they wrote Superman in 1931 at the age of 16, but I can't find when they sold the rights to the Superman character. Okay. And Jay says, see, I thought the short story, The Reign of Superman, came first, and that was in 1933.
That was never published, as far as I know.
No, it wasn't published, but they just did it together. I think they created them in 31. They put together the first version of Superman was more Lex Luthor than Superman. They flipped it after.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the stumbling blocks is that they brought the entire first story to DC. It was already created and written and drawn and everything, and then DC, it was actually a comic strip, and DC reformatted it. And you can tell because Superman has a lot of inking in his costume because it would have been printed in black and white in a newspaper. So it's not like something else where the DC or whoever says, okay, we want a character and work up a story and everything. That Siegel and Schuster actually brought that whole cloth to DC. That's probably something that they used, to argue that whole thing.
Yeah. Ed says he found it. In 1938, Siegel and Schuster gave away the copyright to Superman to Detective Comics, Inc.
Yep. Yep, they did. It was like, God, it was like $300, like $150 for each of them or something like that. It was,
nothing. It was absolute peanuts. Yeah.
Even then, it wasn't that much. Yeah.
Right. So, but I guess the point I'm getting to is, how do you think these books starting to hit the public domain is going to affect the comic book publishing world?
That's That's a really good one. I can only imagine what right now goes on behind the scenes, what the lawyers are working on and, getting ready for these things to happen. They're, as we say, lawyering up, even as we speak. I, I don't know. I mean, maybe even more cautious about things, more litigious, you know. It's such a weird thing, because who would have imagined all the 85 years ago, that such a situation would come up. The other thing I'd like to say to Mark Millar is that you don't know what's going to happen in 9 years. I mean, what if somehow laws got changed or updated again in that time?
Yep.
Um, um,
Well, yeah, Disney used to do it all the time. They kept kicking the can further down the road.
I have a really, really unpopular opinion, which is I don't really care or mind if a corporation has the ownership of this stuff. I don't want to see stuff in the public domain. And Sherlock Holmes is a good example because some of the stupid ass ways that Sherlock Holmes is used, that you can, it waters it down. It's not special anymore. The day that Superman can be used by everybody, then what? Where do I go when I want pure Superman comics or goodness or whatever? And then I have 1,000 choices. I'm not, there's a lot of corporate hate out there, and I'm sure Mark Millar is being looked at again as a champion, stick it to the big corporation and all of that. I don't know. They're not going to let it go easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're just going to go, okay, we'll just open the door. I mean, that's, bread and butter right there. And especially now that it's, he's a movie property. I mean, the companies are not going to go, they're not going to go away,
And they have like every lawyer lined up like greyhounds on the dog track, just waiting for one mistake, and it's like go,
Yeah. I won't go into detail, but I recently had a situation concerning Star Trek. And from what I understand, because Star Trek or what is it? Paramount is being sold.
Yeah.
Did it happen yet? I don't remember.
No, they're still in talks.
Okay. Somebody suggested to me that the reason that something I was not even had published, but only had kind of previewed, got me a C&D letter, was because Paramount is trying to get all their ducks in a row to make what they do and what they have look really good to the prospective buyer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that also, I think it's sad that creative properties of things that bring so much enjoyment to so many people in the world, have to be in the middle of all this crap, but it's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, are you maybe suggesting that companies may keep changing how they deal with creators, like currently? Are you kind of thinking along those lines that
I'm looking at fans, because I'm starting to wonder how much value is the universe they're in to the character.
Yeah.
Because Superman and Batman are huge for the DC universe, but how much is the DC universe a driving force for those characters? Would people really get behind? I mean, how many Superman stories do they want to watch or read that are just Superman?
Yeah.
Because the ones that everybody loves is when, Batman shows up. Oh, he's with Wonder Woman in this one. Oh, he's teaming with the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
here
would fans or readers care to read these characters from another publisher? It's like
that's a great point.
Dynamite does a lot of public domain books, or at least they did in the past. I don't know if they're currently doing them, but they do. The Black Terror and Catman and stuff like that, all from like AC Comics or whatever they were called back then.
Yeah.
And the point is that nobody else is currently doing them. Dynamite's the only one that's kind of put their own group of characters together, thanks to originally Jim Kruger and Alex Ross.
Yeah, that was called Project Superpower.
Yep, still is.
Okay, it is still. Oh, okay, good. All right. Yeah, I bought a lot of that stuff back in the day.
Moonstone likes to do a lot of those old stuff. Yep. Now, I don't know how much they're actually working with licensors, because I know they do the Green Hornet and the Phantom and stuff like that.
They're doing both. They both have, the public domain stuff. Like my new Green Hornet short story that's coming out, in the other half of the book that it's going to be in is the Phantom Detective, which is an old pulp character and is public domain, So.
And I know Moonstone, as funny as Moonstone and Dynamite kind of do the same characters.
Yeah.
Alias the Spider, the Cat, stuff like that.
Yeah. Speaking it from this fan's point of view, going back to what you were saying, yeah, I like Superman when he's part of the DC universe. I mean, I like interactions between characters. I like that feeling of it. I don't think it would be that interesting to just have Superman adventures without him, being in that wider universe. If he's just off in a, here's what I think might happen is DC might get to the point where they might have to put on covers the real Superman or the original Superman, or, the Superman you've loved for years. That's a little wordy, but I could, it's like the real Ghostbusters and the original, whatever the heck there was that thing a long time ago about the other, there was a TV show called Ghostbusters that had nothing to do with the movie, and one touted it as the real Ghostbusters, and I can't remember what they called the other one. But,
the other Ghostbusters were two guys and a gorilla.
Yeah. Tracy the gorilla, who was Bob Burns. Mm-hmm. But that might be something that we'll see, and that'll be really weird. DC says the real Superman, so that people will know. I mean, I don't know how they wouldn't know that if DC has a character called, Superman, and they can then religiously keep maintaining all of those parts of the property that are theirs until those start to, fall off. I guess that might be what they're probably thinking that they're going to do, other than just going after everybody and see who backs down, like me when contacted by Paramount. I said, okay, you win. I'm not fighting you.
Now, see, Ed's different than us. According to Ed, he liked the old George Reeves Superman because it was just Superman. He prefers it that way.
Okay. Sure.
Then again, Superman, George Reeves, did cross over with I Love Lucy. And he was Superman in the Lucy episode.
That's right.
Yeah. Jay says, I'm a huge Superman fan. So for me, I do have to have him interact with other heroes. That's a bonus to me. Yep.
Yeah.
See, even when we were talking a few minutes ago and I said, how cool would it be to do a story, like a noir story with Superman and Batman, like in the 30s, in their early days, when Batman still used guns and wore purple gloves.
That's going on right now. There's that, is it Chris Weston? And I can't think of who the writer it's published in a big magazine style thing. Yeah. And I didn't care for it, but that's going on right now,
Yeah.
It takes place in 1939, the year that Batman started.
Yep. Yeah,
it's going to be hard seeing Batman hit these things. Superman, I mean, I like Superman and always have, but I'm not the biggest Superman fan in the world. But it's going to be hard to see, people trying to use Batman.
Yeah, and just think about this. There were those parodies that came out years ago that were more adult themed videos.
Uh-huh.
Could you imagine them doing them with the original costumes and getting to actually say the names?
Well, that's what Tijuana Bibles were. It was the actual, characters. They weren't changing names or anything, and they were in compromising, positions and situations, and they were, just mimeographed or whatever, and kind of sold, on street corners or whatever. I mean, that's pretty much, what it was. And I don't really know if any of the companies tried to go after any of that stuff, but they probably couldn't even find the people behind them, for that matter.
Axel Braun specials, yes. Yeah, Axel Braun was the one that kind of started that. And so George Reeves was on Lucy as Superman? Yes.
No, he was Superman.
Yeah. He the basic plot of it was little Ricky wanted Superman to be at his birthday party, so Lucy dressed up in a really bad Superman costume and was going to come in through the window. Instead, Ricky used his connections to get Superman to show up as George Reeves in all his glory, and he leapt in through the kitchen, the little blind slider things. And then they realized that Lucy was still out on the ledge.
And it was raining.
And raining, so Superman went out there to get her.
Yeah.
And there's comedy out there too. And there's one point where she starts whining, and he goes, "You've been married to her for 10 years?
Yeah.
And they call me Superman."
They call me Superman. Yeah, it's funny. It's not George Reeves. It's supposed to be Superman.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was not too long before he died, right?
I believe that because the show was still on.
Yeah, he was coming back to do the next
season,
was excited about it,
and
then he was turned up dead.
Yeah, and that's one of the arguments that people give about that he didn't commit suicide, that they said he was supposedly, looking forward to the whole thing.
Yep. But I still find it interesting that Ben Affleck played George Reeves in Hollywoodland, where he's having an affair with Diane Lane, and then later Ben Affleck would play Batman, and Diane Lane would be Superman's mom.
Something ain't right there. That's funny. You know what? I haven't. That's not a bad movie. That
Hollywoodland.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's fun.
So, can you think of any positives coming from about these moving into public domain?
I'm the wrong person to ask that because, like I said, I just have a very unpopular opinion about that. I can't see it. No, I can't see a positive because it just means a lot of people who shouldn't have their hands on these properties will now somehow, in one form or another, get their hands on it. No, I can't. And again, I'm going to go back to, if I can't write Batman, and I really want to, that pushes me to create something new. If anything, it should be spurring on creativity to try to come up, with something that I own lock, stock, and barrel. I don't have to worry. And I don't have 1,000 other creators doing the same character. Like, why would I want to do that?
Sure.
Yep.
No, I agree with you on that. And there's so many Superman pastiches out there.
Uh-huh.
that it's, kind of already flooded. I'm not sure why you'd want to put another one out there.
Yeah, because pretty much everybody has, has one. And the reason that those exist is because DC owns Superman,
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm kind of like, I think you and I are a similar page here, but I want Superman to stay with DC and exist in the world with Batman and Wonder Woman and all of them. I wasn't that thrilled when Captain Marvel came over.
Yeah.
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 I don't like when characters jump universes. Like Angela went from being the Spawn universe
Yeah.
to being the Marvel universe. Like, what? No.
And now she's not. And now she's no longer part of the Marvel universe, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know where she is now.
As far as I know, she's not. If I remember correctly, when I was still writing for Marvel.com, something came up, and I think I was told just kind of gloss over like that, that don't mention that, because I don't think she is. She's not brought up anymore, as far as I know. So I don't think that she is part of it. She used to be Thor's sister or something crazy like that.
Yeah, which makes sense because Odin got around in the stories, but kind of like Zeus.
This is true. This is very true. What I really enjoy?
Child of Zeus.
You know what I really enjoy about the idea of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman being in the same universe and on the same teams and interacting and being friends and whatever else, is that those were all created by different sets of people at different times with no intention that would ever really happen,
Right. It just happened naturally.
But they did. And the most unlikely one of all really is Superman and Batman. It's so funny to think of, those two, it really should not have worked, but it does.
Oh yeah.
And it's really a funny,
stories.
Funny
There's
thing.
Different genres, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your classic noir character, your Shadow, your Alias the Spider,
and
then you have your Hercules, you have your, Titan, your Greek god.
And
it's like, let's do a team up book. What?
Yep.
Yeah, it is kind of weird
it's like the Spectre being in the Justice Society of America. It's like, why do you need the Justice Society of America when you have the Spectre who can do anything? He's like a god,
Yep. It's almost like Superman is, doing charity work with Batman.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like Make-A-Wish Foundation for superheroes.
Yeah.
You got to hang out with Superman for a day and save planets instead of just stopping bank robbers.
I give credit to all the writers of World's Finest over the decades, because they really had to come up with stories that would work to have Batman and Superman in the same story and not have Batman be totally useless,
Yep. Oh yeah, Ed's got a great example here. When Green Hornet popped up on Batman 66, everyone was like, "What?"
Yep.
And that's just because the same producers were doing both shows. Greenway Productions, and
it kind of works though. And what I like is that they did not forget that the Green Hornet was seen as a villain. Like Batman, actually says, like, you're a criminal, and they fight and everything like that. So it is kind of fun. It's one of the most well remembered and well thought of Batman episodes, but it's not really that great of an episode. It's a very lackluster villain.
They turned them into stamps.
I know. It's Colonel Gum. I like Roger C. Carmel and all of that, but they made up a villain just for, when it really should have been like the Joker or I'm trying to think of, what else it could have been. The real reason for that episode is just to have those characters meet and fight. That's all there is to it. For every kid who wondered what a fight between Robin and Kato would be like, there you got it.
Robin should have lost.
I know. Yeah, especially when you consider that Kato was an adult and one of the greatest martial artists, you know, and that Robin was supposed to be, let's see, that second season, Robin was supposed to have been about 16, you know, roughly in that episode, 15, 16, something like that.
But should have been able to take out Batman and Robin while the Green Hornet just hung out in the car.
But it was nice because they said we cannot disappoint anybody. This fights have to come to a draw. And that's what they do. Batman and Green Hornet, it's a draw, and Robin and Kato, it's a draw. So that neither group of fans, you know, would be disappointed.
Yeah. He says, Ed says, I was watching a documentary on comics. Burt Ward was on there and said his fight with Kato was Bruce Lee's first ever fight on camera in the U.S. Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't think that's right, though.
Well, because the movies and stuff were all filmed overseas.
What?
He's saying it was the first time that he fought on camera in the U.S.
But no, because the Green Hornet show was already in production.
No, the Batman appearance led into.
Oh, is it? Okay, then my timeline's off. Okay.
Yeah, they were using the Batman to give it a bump.
Okay.
To get people to watch to launch Green Hornet.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a backdoor pilot.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Interesting fact I learned last night about the Ahsoka series. The woman who plays Morgan Elsbeth is Diana Lee Encanto. Mm-hmm. She is the goddaughter of Bruce Lee.
Huh.
But the connection between her father, Dan Encanto, and Bruce Lee goes back many years. Dan actually trained Bruce in certain martial art forms.
Huh.
He also trained Chuck Norris.
Boy.
And then Bruce made his own martial art form, Jeet Kune Do, opened up a dojo, and only had 3 teachers that he approved to teach Jeet Kune Do, and Dan was one of those 3.
Huh.
And when Bruce Lee died, Dan Encanto basically took over as the historian and the keeper of Jeet Kune Do.
Huh. What a connection. Wow.
Yep.
Huh.
But yeah, so public domain for Superman, other characters to come. I just thought that was kind of an interesting topic because do I think Mark Millar will do his own Superman books now? Do I think somebody will? Yes.
Uh-huh.
Somebody will do an adult book. Somebody will do a horror book.
Uh-huh.
But there's already been so many ripoffs, and I mean, Brightburn is what if Superman was bad?
Uh-huh.
You know, Homelander and the Boys. I mean, there's so many.
Would you say that Unbreakable is like a Superman story, sort of?
A little.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's as obviously connected, but I could see, you know.
Yeah. And then there's that whole like Moses thing and Jesus thing, you know. I mean, total ripoffs of Superman.
Yeah. I mean, that's I could see unique ways of doing it, but you could just do it without it being Superman. If you're just going to do, you know, say you wanted to do, what would be, here's an idea. How fun would it be if Batman and Superman lived in the same city and Batman kept getting upset because Superman got all the credit and stopped all the real crime while Batman was just like the night shift.
But Superman doesn't need to sleep, or well, he used to not need to sleep. So I don't know what they do nowadays, but Batman would be totally out of a job. He'd have to move.
But yeah, my whole point is that you could do that story just by changing the characters' names.
Yep.
You could do that with Apollo and Midnighter.
Yeah, that's the characters I was trying to think of. And I said it before, everybody will know what you're doing and still love it. They'll go, "Oh, wow, you know, like this is like a Superman story, except it's, you know, Supreme or, you know, Samaritan or whatever." And we'll all be fine. We'll all just, you know, we'll all be fine.
has been going on since the beginning of time. I mean, Superman was created, was a hit, so they made Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was a hit, so somebody made Marvel Man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jack Kirby did Captain America, went to another company, tried to do another version of him, did the Shield for Arch for.
I mean, Thor is basically Marvel's Superman, you know.
Yeah, but at least he was based on something that existed.
Yeah, but as far as a red-caped figure from another place, you know, with powers beyond those of mortal men, you know,
Yeah.
that's you know, I mean, Stan probably seriously wanted to have that type of figure, you know, a Superman type of figure in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, but at least he went out of his way to make it different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, others haven't. It's just like, yeah, that's Superman. You're not even crying.
Yep.
Oh, Ed says, does Superman have his own rogues gallery? The only true Superman let I know is Lex Luthor. I know, Jay, I'm lame. Yeah, there's
Bizarro. Yeah, they're lame. There's two good ones, and they're all the rest of them are lame.
Bizarro, Brainiac,
Parasite,
the guy with the Krypton heart, Metallo. Lex Luthor, Livewire is one of his.
The Prankster,
yeah.
Toyman.
Bloodsport is technically his.
Yep. Yeah, he appeared in Action Comics, or was he at first in Action Comics by Byrne or in the regular Superman book? Yeah, it was Byrne created Bloodsport. Yeah, it's just that they're not very memorable beyond Luthor and Brainiac. I mean, those are, you know, I mean, it's not like Batman where you have so many of them on the same level. I mean, you have the Joker, obviously, and then you have this really solid second tier of Penguin, Catwoman, you know.
Also General Zod.
Oh, Zod, yeah, there's a good one.
And Doomsday.
You know what's interesting about Zod, though, is that he I think when he first appeared in the Silver Age, but he was never like a big deal until after the Christopher Reeve movie. Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, yeah, he, you know, and now he's considered to be, you know, a pretty big one.
That happens a lot. I mean, Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze was a character that showed up quite a bit. He had a name change. I think he started as Mr. Zero.
Mr. Zero, and then the Batman TV series made him Mr. Freeze. Yeah,
right. But it wasn't it was the animated series that actually gave him the backstory that everybody fell in love with. The wife, all that stuff.
Yeah, Killer Croc. There's a, you know, pretty big one there. I'm partial to the ventriloquist.
Who has the best rogues gallery? I would have to put, if we were going to have that conversation, Batman would be one of the ones you'd consider. Spider-Man would be another. You'd also want to include Flash.
Yeah, to me, it goes Batman, Spider-Man, Flash. Definitely, those are the top three. You know who has a horrible rogues gallery is Wonder Woman. She went, you know, I mean,
she's got what? Cheetah, Giganta, Dr.
Cheetah. I mean, for years, that's all you could really go to was Cheetah. The Angle Man, you know, no, like she just had a bunch of one-offs and, you know, barely any recurring bad guys.
It was like trying to work on a pitch years ago for Green Arrow. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing they did with Hush, is kind of bring in and update a lot of Green Arrow's original villains and stuff.
Yeah.
They were crap. You had Catman, which is technically his.
Clock King is wasn't he?
No, but Vertigo.
Oh, Count Vertigo, right. Merlin,
and everything else was Arrow related.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, Aquaman's is not that bad. He's got a better rogues gallery than Wonder Woman. You know who has a pretty good rogues gallery is Captain America.
He does.
You know,
so much so that they're spreading out into other people's movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Iron Man has a couple of interesting ones in there. I always like the unicorn.
Titanium Man.
Yep. Crimson Dynamo. Of course, the Mandarin. I mean, that's like the big one right there.
Yeah.
You know,
Hulk
they
has
all have this like one really big one, and then a bunch that sort of nobody knows about, except for Batman, Spider-Man, and the Flash.
But I think Batman and Spider-Man, there's been so many adaptations that they're more common. I mean, the 66 Batman,
Yeah.
the Spider-Man animated series, we've had so many Spider-Man animated series and
Yeah.
Batman animated series and stuff. Here's a question. Who gets Darkseid?
My unpopular opinion would be the Justice League. Maybe Superman if I stretched it. But yeah, that's very interesting. He appeared, technically he would be a Superman villain because he first appeared in a Superman family book. Yeah, I guess it would have to be Superman, although I kind of think of him more as a Justice League, villain. But yeah, I'll give him to Superman.
What about Vandal Savage?
Hawkman.
Yep. Which may be Hawkman's only regular villain.
Gentleman Ghost.
True.
Who is utterly one of I just love Gentleman Ghost. He's the greatest. And Gentleman Ghost went on to fight Batman too.
Yep.
Yeah, he's really super cool. I love him.
One of the more modern things I love in building a rogues gallery was what Jeff Johns did with Green Lantern and the different cores. Because suddenly we had Atrocious and Larfleeze and these different colored rings, and Sinestro got a core, and it was like, damn, this is kick-ass.
Those are really fun times when he was expanding and coming up with a core for each color. That was really, really fun when that was all going on.
Yeah, that was just
he had the ones that were all like dead ones or zombies or whatever,
Yeah, Black Hand raised them, and
yeah, that was good stuff.
All right, we've got to get going. Ed's having the time of his life right now as we're talking about rogues galleries and stuff.
Well, write a letter to Dan and tell him that you want to hear more about rogues galleries, because I could talk about rogues galleries for forever.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for tuning in. This was a fun chat. If you haven't hit the like, subscribe buttons, please do so. We will be back next week with some topic, whatever I come up with, and surprise Jim with.